Hi there and welcome to MoCDA Talk Series. We're connecting with Franco, known as Frenetik Void, from Buenos Aires, Argentina, where he still works and resides. He has been connecting to digital technology since his childhood due to his father's relationship with software development. Frenetik Void was born as a result of his artistic exploration in digital art. During the talk, you hear how Franco creates his art, encapsulating his life experiences into distant, surreal, and futuristic worlds. Enjoy the talk.
There we
Hello.
go. Hi,
Hey, hi, nice to
how's it
meet you.
going? Me
Okay,
too.
yes, you?
Yeah, okay, here. It's a good day.
Nice, nice. Thank you for connecting with us. I really
There we go.
appreciate it. And
No,
it's
thank
good
you
to
for
meet
this
you.
opportunity. Me too.
Good. So
Look at
yes,
this day.
I was how is it going there? Are you calling from Argentina? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Right now I'm in Buenos Aires, uh,
Mm-hmm.
in the countryside, like a bit away from the city. But yeah,
That's nice. Yeah. I'm here in
you?
London. I'm
London.
actually very central London, close to
Very
London
central.
Bridge. But it's
Yeah.
surprisingly very quiet outside. Not many people go out,
Um,
despite the beautiful weather. But yes.
it's beautiful. And but you have like full quarantine there. Like you can go out or you need to stay home.
Well, technically, people are invited to stay home and only go out for, emergency reasons or
Yeah.
shopping. But I do see far many people outside just
Yeah, like here.
walking. So you're allowed to go out once a day for exercising.
Yeah,
But I've seen, families going out for a stroll. So it is a bit disappointing. But, hopefully the
yeah.
situation will be more normal. I don't know what normality is going to look like actually after all of this.
Do you hear me there? I think I'm like with. Let's see here.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are you getting a
There we
bit of
go.
sun?
Yeah, yeah, but I need to be close to my house because the Wi-Fi, if not, turns like weaker, and we can't speak. Okay, so I'll just sit here.
Okay, okay, thank you. So before we connected, I gave a brief introduction to surrealism and surrealist
Yeah,
art. And I read something from André Breton saying that it's a condition that combines dream like and reality into an absolute reality, a super reality, or surreality. And I
yeah,
think that really fits the work that you create. And, talking to you, I can see how young you are. And I'm curious to know how you take on surrealism and explore
yeah,
that into, a new composition of elements.
yeah. So I guess like it came quite naturally. I'm not really like a super art consumer, or I haven't like studied art or anything like so deeply, like I haven't got like history base about surrealism, and like I decided to go through that. It was like more natural. The first thing, I mean, I always like to mess up like things with the computer. So
Hmm.
mess up, I mean, like when I had like a game when I was little, I tried to edit that game and make my own game, and like decompose or deconstruct um, the things I used. And I guess it like it goes that way. Like I started like learning these 3D tools like 5 years ago, more or less, 5 6 years ago, and I just like played, like put things there and I start deconstructing what I did, and it turned out this way, like then when I saw that the things I did had similarities to like famous surrealist works or things like that, I started to get more into it and started to analyze like the pieces and all that. But it went out like quite naturally. Yeah.
I see. And how did you get to learn about 3D programs?
3D.
I read
Okay.
in your bio that your dad was a developer.
Yeah. He is a software developer. So like we always had I always had like computers around since I was a kid. So I guess that's why I'm so into the computer. Like I've always had the computer, and I always was around computers. So that was like I think that the first step for my like connection with the machine, perhaps. Um, and then I learned the 3D tools. Here's my dog
Oh, hello. What's
jumping
his
around.
name?
Luna, Moon.
Moon. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So it's a girl.
Yeah.
Really
And
nice.
so I started with the 3D tools when I joined a school of like how do you say in English, video game design. So
Okay.
I've always played video games and always want since I was a kid. So I've always wondered how you make video games, and I had no idea about it. And I think like my first step into the 3D world was learning like the basic techniques of 3D at this
Mm-hmm.
school, and then a lot of on my own, you know, like I I studied a lot, but in the computer alone, YouTube, and not so much with tutorials, but more like try and error, you know, like just mashing things up and see how it looks, see if I like it, try another thing. Like I'm not a super technical guy in that aspect, you know, like I haven't studied the program like deeply, and because of that I know how to use it. I just like developed my own use for the program, and that I'm very happy for it,
Mm-hmm.
because it was natural, as I said.
I mean, you can't really tell that from what we're seeing. Like, I've put one of your work here on the screen, and
Yeah.
by looking at this, I would have
Mm,
imagined that you spent
yeah.
hours and you've
As-
studied a lot of aesthetic composition, looked at
no, no,
surrealist
no,
art.
no.
That's what, I would have think when I see this kind of work.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to know, how do you do it so naturally? I mean, I understand that you sort of do trials through the softwares you're using, like 3D
Yeah.
softwares, but in a way, it definitely looks like you have a very good understanding of the space in digital and
Yeah.
communicate emotion so beautifully in a very surreal and post Android
Thank you.
scenario, you know?
Thank you. Like I spent a lot of time in the computer making these things. Is I mean that was my way of studying. Like I made a lot of these, you know, like I started like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and I've never stopped, you know, like perhaps every day I was hours in the computer. I mean that was my way of studying, but I didn't study like from books or theory about composition or I guess I have that more from the I went to the university also to study audiovisual design.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was not so centered around like I don't know, we didn't have like 3D programs, only the basic, you know, like we didn't study that. But yeah, I studied a lot of theory, and like perhaps there I knew how to compose because of the camera, you know. Um, yeah. I mean, I did spend a lot of time, and I do spend a lot of time doing these things. Um, but I'm not like a guy who studies a lot. Like I can't read a whole book. Perhaps I'm like so my mind is very hyperlinked, like the web. I don't know, like the internet. You know, I start something and then I at the half of it I find something I like interests me more. And I go there. You know, like jumping around. So yeah.
There's somebody asking here in the chat if you do sketch out compositions or if you just go straight into 3D when starting a new piece.
Straight to 3D.
Mm-hmm.
I don't sketch because I tried sketching out, but it's always like a frustration because I never get what I want. Sometimes I get better, and sometimes I get worse. Like, but I guess my workflow is quite like put it out put it out there and not trying to follow an idea, but perhaps more an emotion, like something I'm trying to evoke or I'm feeling, and I go to that or I work with that. But I'm not like looking for a specific composition, or I don't say like before the piece, oh, okay, I'm going to do this, and no, it's more like the more I don't think, the better, I think.
Mm-hmm. So you go with the flow of what you are
Yeah,
thinking and exploring through what you're making. I see.
yeah,
It is interesting to notice that surrealism was kind of born after the First World War in Paris and around Central Europe. And it was exactly 100 years ago, around 1920s. And that came also as a form of revolution from what art used to be in the past. So you had these dreamlike elements coming into a more realistic scene, not
yeah,
making real sense, sort of being in conflict, in contrast. But that conflict sort of created beauty in terms of building new ways of looking at the reality, which, after the war would have been catastrophic. So
yeah.
my interest in your work came also because I do see similarities in what we're living right now. And, this is another form of revolution. And what we're living, it is, in a way, a war, that we're
It is,
fighting
it is
as
totally a war.
humans.
Yeah.
So how do you feel your work, touching on surrealism, can sort of be in support of that revolution that we're all going through? Or how do you see this parallel in your work?
I guess like I like to create this like canonic, beautiful scenarios, perhaps, um, because I can like escape through them. You know, like in a moment that we're all like now locked up in our houses, uh, like we need to go out some way. Perhaps
Yeah.
not physically, but through the eyes and the web and the cables. You know, so and the screen, more the screen. Like and we have it like so incorporated, like we don't realize, but we're like constantly like escaping reality through these devices and obviously the computer. um so I guess it's like a way to, for me, it's a way to escape, and then obviously the work finishes, or it's a work when I share it, and I get like, and the people sees it, and it's not more mine, like it's on its own. And I guess it helps that way, you know. It makes people feel something that perhaps if they hadn't seen it, they wouldn't have felt. So it's a way to escape, you know, reality and this plane, perhaps. I see it more as that way. I have like I don't put a flag of revolution or nothing, because I truly work like from my emotions and obviously from my social background and everything. But I think it's more like a gesture of, I don't know, because we see a lot of content perhaps, and we, as so much information is flowing nowadays, we like, it's difficult to really like pick up what to see, you know. And you know, it's like a moment of a deep breath, you know, taking a deep breath and putting yourself into that, and perhaps escaping this plane. Yeah, I think that's the conclusion.
Mm-hmm. We have somebody here asking, "What's your inspiration?" And I would add
Yeah.
to that, do you have any artist that inspires you?
Yeah, a lot. Now I'm looking more at contemporary art, like, but like my view of contemporary art, like people that make, I don't know, I see a lot of content through the social platforms of a lot of 3D
Mm-hmm.
artists and 2D artists also, and artists in general, that I like pick up and see. I like the latest work of Frederick Heyman. It's incredible. I don't know, Cave Canems, Dario Alba, Adam Martinakis. Also, he was a great inspiration. Like, I saw in his work the possibility of expressing through these virtual bodies or humanoids certain emotions that they're there, you know, like they're they're these virtual mannequins there, that hollow virtual mannequins, and where you can like fill them up or project your own emotions there. And I guess he was the first one, or his work was the first one I saw in which I felt that perhaps, and it made me like perhaps get better at it, you know. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I find inspiration a lot in social media. I don't really look back so much uh, into like history, art history, you know. I'd love to though, but I haven't done that yet, you know. A lot of I have ones. A lot of people said to me like, your work looks a lot like, I don't know, Dali or,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that's when or I started looking, but not before that, you know.
That's
Um,
interesting because
so that's,
sorry,
yeah. No, no, no. Yes.
there's somebody asking here, what are your biggest influences? Who are your biggest influencers? And I
Mm,
think, in a way you did describe the way you work and the fact that you do
yeah.
look for art primarily on social media rather
Yeah.
than going through the history of art. But
Yeah.
then when somebody points out the fact that your work resembles Dali or I
Mm,
would say Max Ernst or
so,
other surrealism,
yeah.
surrealist artists, then you go on and research,
Yeah.
which I think is interesting because you don't allow yourself to sort of look at forms that are more known by us, in general,
Yeah.
because we would all identify Magritte, for example, and recognize that as a
Yeah.
Magritte because we know the style. But you sort of go find your own style, rather learning from social media and fellow
Yeah.
artists that are in line with your age, background, and stuff. But it
Yeah.
is interesting because I think the whole education around art is shifting very, very fast. And there's only very few people that go out and find a book in a library or, in a bookshop and read
Yeah. I
about
know.
a topic, a subject that is from like surrealism 100 years ago.
Mm, yeah.
But it is interesting that is returning and is very much actual, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's your sort of influence? You talked about artists that you look at and movements, but is there anything else in terms of life or politics or any form of influence that plays a role in your work?
Yeah, definitely not politics. Um, it's more about like, as I said earlier, I think emotions and what I feel. I really try to be sincere and work with what I feel, and what I feel is what I feel around me and my life and what I've seen and my friends and my family and my relationships. A lot about relationships, I think. Um, like my relationship with the other being whatever, you know, like something or someone or perhaps myself. So I try to stick sincere with that, uh, because yeah, I have like this tendency to try to be the like honest, you know, and I like
It's
when
a
I
good
see that.
tendency. Keep that.
Yeah. And I like when I see something honest also. That's what I like more value of someone or something, you know, and of a work specifically also. Like that's not trying to pretend, but we're always trying to pretend. Like it's impossible to escape that. But I try like to do it like the least I can, you know. So
I think
um,
being mindful that we all wear a mask, you know, in this society, we all have a role to
yeah,
play, and
yeah,
be okay with it, then that might allow you to sort of drop the, you know, that
yeah,
mask, that face that we'll have to pull every day, and get
yeah,
more in contact with your emotions. And actually,
yeah,
you know, as you were talking about this, I was looking at these work we're showing here
yeah,
on the screen, and I can see
yeah,
the relationship element and also the natural elements, you know, and
yeah,
the sort of dead forms having a place in here. And I wanted
yeah.
to ask you, you know, what's the journey that you go through when making such work? You know, what's the story?
Um, so each piece brings me back to something that happened, I think, in my life. So it's kind of like an emotional diary, you know. Like when I look at them, I can go back and sort of have a glimpse of freedom and feeling what I felt before. So it's kind of like holding on to something, but it's also like a way of putting emotions there and gives me gives me a great relief when I finish something, you know, like the story behind each piece. I don't know. So there are a lot of things that happen, you know, in my life. It's like my daily life. So, but I think like the motor is like the motor of everything. Like the moment I know I need to create is when I feel like this kind of emptiness, you know. Like I tend to create with negative emotions, but I wouldn't say they're bad emotions. They're just like negative, you know, like dark in a good way. Like that's what I try to sublimate perhaps when I feel something that puts me like makes me feel dark. I try to put it there, and it sometimes it turns into something, I don't know, beautiful, and I can like feel better about it, you know. And sometimes it turns into something a bit more, I don't know, grotesque or hollow. I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of stories, and like I like to see the relationship between each piece because I work a lot like with the narrative. That's something that I don't know if it's so like in the superficial plane, but I use a lot like the same models and the same things. Like in that piece in particular, I can see like two other pieces that I put there, like the one the like the two people having sex there, like at the bottom left, it's a piece on its own, and the two people there like holding on to the right is another piece that I have. Um, so in a way, it's like I'm always trying to get with the like take the last thing I did and try to speak about it what with what I feel, you know, like and that's what I do. I open the last work I did and save on top of it. That's part of my process. Um, I always grab what I did and make something of it, you know.
That's
Um,
really interesting because, I mean,
yeah,
from what you're saying, it feels like one work is a composition of multiple works that
yeah,
encapsulate memories of your life, of
yeah,
these relationships that you were describing. And it's
yeah,
so meaningful and powerful to have so much condensed into one work. Because you could say that there's a narrative in terms of these uh, people that look less real and more
yeah,
surreal, emerging from water, sort of taking their first breath. And then at the
yeah.
same time,
Or drowning.
there's or drowning as well. Maybe
Yeah,
one is coming out to life, and another one
yeah,
is sort of losing their life and
yeah,
letting into the water. And
yeah,
then having these moments of joy with that sexuality, and also, you know, this background which feels like, where are we? Are we on this planet? Are we on the moon? Are we into a complete different universe, or we're just in a dream?
yeah. Perhaps it's all the same. Like we are, and that's what uh, we can be here. We can be in another place, but it's all like I try to think of it like as that way. Like we're all like part of the same thing. We're like happily trapped or here. I don't know if trapped. Our mind is trapped. Our mind and body, but it's all part of the same. I don't know. Like when I see the works that I make, I don't really feel that they're like from here. Like the water is not like water. There are. It's like, but also it's like more oniric. You know, another plane perhaps. Yeah,
Mhm. I like
but
that you say that we are trapped in this body and in this mind, but if you
yeah,
put it in perspective, you know, it is all very temporary, and
yeah,
it is a transition, which is something you also see in your work. You know, it is all in constant movement. You see, it's fluid, I would say. You know, is changing. It's never the same thing. You never look at the
yeah,
same thing twice. You know, it's every
yeah.
time you look back at a work, you find things that you wouldn't have seen before.
Yeah, and that's something I really, really put my effort on. Like, if I see I've
It's like a
repeated,
puzzle, you know. You always
yeah,
find the missing piece.
yeah, yeah, like, but because I put like a lot of effort and I in it, like, I really try to feel I haven't repeated myself, you know. Obviously, it's all a repetition, or it's not a repetition. It's a kind of deconstruction of what it was, you know. And everything is like you can see it as the same or as different. I like to see it as different, you know, like as it's like as you said, a constant fluid of things that happens and a beautiful chaos. I don't know. Uh,
Hmm.
I really feel very frustrated when I see that I have repeated myself. Sometimes I obviously see it, but I try to make that feeling like I try to make something new, you know, with each piece. Because if not, it's like I feel I'm not moving, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
There's a couple of questions here that I wanted to
yeah.
read out to you. What piece of your artwork would you like to be remembered for?
Um, no, I don't know. The one which condenses to me the best.
I think you
Oh,
still have so many years in front of you that will
yeah.
be tricky to select one.
No, no, impossible, impossible, impossible.
But I also wanted to go and pick some other works that you shared with me. And while I
Okay.
go look for them, there's another
Yeah.
question with regards. What do you think about VR and immersive art? So I think that's more about how
Okay.
you possibly exhibit art, and
Yeah.
if you have. Sorry,
Sorry,
I'm
what?
here.
The last part? Yeah.
So if you what do you think about VR and immersive art? And I would add, if you do have any
Okay.
experience about exhibiting your work in other dimensions.
Yeah. Um, well, at first I kind of hated VR because I so want to get into it, but because of a factor of mine, that is that I get very dizzy when I put uh, the VR the VR like tech in my head. I get very dizzy.
Oh yeah,
So I
you're
can't
like
I
me.
can't I
I
can't
guess super dizzy.
fully appreciate it, and
Hmm.
I'm very frustrated about it because I love it. You know, I want to put the goggles on and feel like I'm in another space. But yeah, I get kind of dizzy. So that was my first approach. But then when technology got better, like I have now a headset that an organization from here lent me, Encuentro RI, and I worked a bit on an experience for it. Um, yeah, I love it. You know, it's another form of connecting with pieces and being really immersed into virtual in a virtual realm. But yeah, I think that the future of it is something that integrates a bit more reality. Like it would be great if I like mixed reality because it doesn't like only put you in a virtual space, like only your sight and your hearing. But it kind of integrates the world with the virtual stuff, and that's I think what I tend to look up to, something that integrates. Like I don't want to nullify reality. I want to like I don't know. I think it can modify, you know, or
Hmm.
transform, make it better. Yeah,
Yeah, I do agree with you that I think there should be an element of virtual experience, but at the same time keeping that connection with the reality, sort of merging IRL and
yeah,
URL together and make it like a XRL, perhaps.
yeah.
I don't know.
Mm.
But that could be something. And have you ever created art in virtual reality, or have you done any sort of
Yeah,
augmented reality work?
yeah, yeah. I did for my thesis in the university. I did like I would say like a virtual experience. That's kind of a walking simulator. Um, that kind of condenses a lot of my work in it. Like it's a virtual experience mixed up with an installation because you have to play it in a space like inside. You know these policemen's how do you say um, when the policemen like get inside these cabins, these small cabins. How do you
Mm-hmm.
call them? Like
I do.
security cabins. Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Uh,
you mean the box where they go
yeah,
inside
the
this
box.
police
Yeah,
box? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know how to say in English.
No, it's fine. I'm
Um,
not English either, so I'm
okay.
just guessing the language. It's fine. Maybe people can help us.
Yeah. Okay. So you have to play the experience in there because experience is part of the experience, you know. And then I bring my computer, put it inside one of those, a specific one of those.
Cabins. It's
Uh,
called cabins. Somebody
yeah,
just suggested
cabins.
it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. And then you like visit this virtual surreal space. That's kind of my I like to think it as, yeah, part of me, part of like my adolescence mind. You know, it's kind of like a dreamy experience. I love it. Yeah, I haven't showed it so much because it's not optimized like to put it out there and for people to download it, and also because the full experience is playing it inside this cabin. You know,
That's
but
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that physical constraint and experience that you have to be within that space to
yeah,
have the full experience.
yeah,
I discovered your work because I
mm,
was invited to do a selection, a curatorial selection on
yeah,
Non-Origin, the crypto art platform. And I
yes,
know that David, who's the founder of Non-Origin, is watching. So I was curious to know, what was your journey about approaching platforms and having your work on those
yeah,
platforms? Because
yeah,
that's how I came across your work, and I found it, very inspiring, and that's how I got curious about the story. I don't know if you managed to read
yeah, yeah.
the
I loved
section
it.
I wrote about the work.
Yeah, I
And
shared it on Instagram also.
oh, cool! I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
mm,
But
yeah,
that's why I got so intrigued about your work,
mm,
and
mm.
I'm glad that David gave me that opportunity. But yes, if you want to spend a few words about what was your experience, how that was for you as an experience about putting your work on a platform like that, because of course, it
yeah,
is a way of supporting artists and getting others to appreciate your art and collect it.
yeah. I think it's kind of innovating. You know, like the fact that you can, like, in a way, use the blockchain to, because there are a lot of things in the world that are changing. Like right now, a lot of things. Um, I think like money and economy, and I'm not an economist, nothing. I don't like it, but it's all changing, and I factor that you can the sorry um, merge this technology with digital art and make a piece unique, and someone collecting it, and like finding a sort of market for it. It made sense, you know, when I heard of it the first time. Like,
How did you
I don't
come
know,
across the crypto and digital art
I
platforms?
I looked for it in Google. Like one day I was speaking with my dad, and we were thinking about the pieces, and we said like they're there, and there are a lot of them. And how can you make like a piece unique, you know, for someone or something, or because the uniqueness gives it like value, perhaps. I don't think that way, but um, in a way it does, you know. So I don't know. We were speaking, and I think he said like, and what about like the blockchain technology with art, with digital art, and like we clicked, and that was like, I don't know, 6 months ago, more or less. And I searched in Google, and I saw there were different platforms already doing it, and
Hmm.
I entered it. I, I I didn't really know what was it when I entered, you know. It was just like an impulse, you know, like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, people can collect art here. I love it because when someone collects art from me, like I feel like the piece more far away uh, from me, and that's what I love. I make these things to get things away from me, you know. Um, and in a way, it separates you more with the piece, and I love that. That's like a feeling
That's
that
so
gives me
interesting, because so many
yeah,
artists, I know so
yeah,
many artists creating
yeah,
digital and physical art that are the opposite,
mm,
Once they make a work, they are married with that work, so they don't want to give
yeah,
it away, you know? And it's interesting that for you, it's it's like the
very good.
work takes life the minute it leaves you, you know, and
Yeah,
it's in the hand of somebody else.
yeah, Yeah, so
And do you think you've reached out to a larger audience by being present on those platforms, or how did that play to you in terms of the outreach,
mm,
or
no, because
even like
it's
I would say the way people look at your art, perhaps?
yeah. Um, yeah, it's like new people. When I entered these platforms, they told me that the people or the community that started crypto art was all in Twitter, and I didn't even have had Twitter. Like I had, but I created it when I was, I don't know, 15.
Yeah,
Um,
we all
and
did.
yeah, and so I don't know. I started like using Twitter because of it, like and meeting new people and new artists, and so it was all new. I didn't even like I don't even mention it in my Instagram because I feel like they're two different like worlds now that I hope they'll merge eventually because I think it's great. It's like I think it's like an opportunity to people like me that loves to make art and digital arts uh, may or can live for and by it or from it, and that's incredible. Like
Mhm.
that's I think it's one of my dreams, like to live for and from my art.
Of course,
Yeah,
yes, and I yeah, I do understand that there's different communities on different social medias, and also
yeah,
the crypto art community. It is something that it has actually sort of taken life from Twitter and then expanded onto those platforms that we
yeah,
now know, and it all happened in the span of like 2 years or less.
yeah,
So it is interesting how art and the relationship between you as an artist and your collectors or people that appreciate your work has changed. Um, I was going to somebody is asking which platforms are you referring to. So I was talking
yeah.
about non-origin, but I know you also have works on other platforms. I don't know if you want to maybe tell people where
Yeah,
they can find your work.
yeah, in known origin, super rare, maker's place, rarible, open sea. I try to put it everywhere, because I have a lot of work and I don't really like to I don't really like to choose things, I like to expand myself. So I love to have like different type of pieces and different platforms, and like in a way that organizes my work a lot because I have a lot of work and it's difficult to organize when you have a lot of work, because
Mhm.
I don't make it in an organized way, like I just make a lot, and then I'm like, oh, what do I do with this, um, so having in different platforms, in a way, it organizes me, and I kind of make a small curation myself, and it's fun, like okay, this goes with this, and yeah, that's
No.
why I have in different platforms.
Makes sense, yes. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just going to put these one on the screen. I know that unfortunately my face sort of cropping out the best section of this work. Sorry about that. But yes, we've got a few minutes before the live will end. Um,
Okay.
but I wanted to ask you, which is the project you're currently working on, if there's anything that you are currently exploring, and how the situation we're all living and experiencing, it's sort of impacting, influencing, or informing the work that you have created and you are going to create. And I feel I've put this image on the screen because to me it sort of resonates with what we're currently living through. The fact that you first said about having a face and wearing the mask, and that we all play a role within society. But then we do have our inner self that is maybe sitting, on the back of our head, telling us how we feel about things and how deeply inside we are connected with our emotions. So, yeah, I wanted to sort of bring this up and ask you how all of this is sort of playing on you as an artist.
Okay, so right now, um, I'm in a period of, like, because of the quarantine, I lived in the city, like in the city of Buenos Aires, but I live like in a small department, like with my computer alone. And because of the lockdown, I decided to come for the lockdown to my place, to my family's place, to my mother's place, and so I'm having like a lot of regressions and thoughts about the past and about my work. So it's like some sort of period of getting inside my head and looking to what I've done. I always try to really try to look from another perspective, like try to move from myself and look to what my mind is telling me, or what I'm doing, or it's a sort of like of meditation, like observational phase that this piece works about also, like, so I'm in that period of my life, like in this lockdown, I'm like taking advantage to look at what I did or what I do, and what that makes me feel. I turn it into a new piece. So I'm constantly making it. I made one yesterday, so I finished one yesterday. So yeah, it's the same process over and over again, but different. Trying to create always, take the best I can of the situation, inspire myself, and create and get it out there, but never stop creating, because that's what, I don't know. If I stop creating, I die, because it's my desire. It's like the my desire is put there. So yeah, I don't know. I see it like as a good future. I don't know. I'm like comfortable with that. Like create until I die.
That's such a beautiful phrase to sort of conclude this very thoughtful chat we had. I'm very pleased that we got to meet each other and talk about your work. I massively appreciate it. Where can we see your work? Your latest work.
Yeah. I haven't uploaded yet. I guess I'll upload it. I sort of upload it to Instagram every time I make something. That was my routine. But now I'm like keeping some of my works and saying, no, this I don't want to get it out there yet, because I'm focusing a lot in the narrative. Like I want it to be like the story to be the clearest as possible for me, and obviously for everyone, because I share it and everyone is me, and like it's a reflection. But yeah, I guess the first place I publish it is in Instagram, and perhaps I'll upload it also to a crypto art platform. I don't know which and when, but
Are you there? Okay, sorry, I've lost you for a few seconds.
Okay.
Okay.
No, yes, this week, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't plan it.
That's cool. All right. Yeah. Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your work with us.
Thank you so much, Serena.
Stay safe, and we'll speak soon. Bye now. Thank you, everyone watching. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.